What difference at this point does it make? What difference at this point does it make? What difference does it make? What difference does it make?
Swearing to tell the truth about Benghazi, an event mired in conspiracy theories and political mudslinging. Ambassador Christopher Stevens and 3 other Americans were killed in the attack on the compound last year. Now the first public account by a US official who was in Libya at the time.
I received a call from the Prime Minister of Libya. I think it's the saddest phone call I've ever had in my life. He told me that Ambassador Stevens had passed away.
In the immediate aftermath of the attack, the Obama administration gave conflicting accounts of what happened. Officials eventually acknowledged it was a planned assault. But the UN ambassador, Susan Rice, initially said it erupted spontaneously, the result of a protest over an anti-Islamic video.
I was stunned. My jaw dropped. And I was embarrassed.
Republicans have accused the Obama administration of failing to protect the Benghazi compound and then trying to cover up a terrorist attack in the run-up to the presidential election. The testimony of Greg Hicks has done nothing to lay that theory to rest, but Democrats maintain that the confusion was the result of incomplete information and that there was no attempt to mislead the public. Jane O'Brien, BBC News.
Not waver in our commitment to see that justice is done for this terrible act in Benghazi. And make no mistake, justice will be done. That was the President of the United States. Remember the mantra, Mr. Chairman? Al-Qaeda's on the run. GM's alive. Osama bin Laden's dead. Al-Qaeda's on the run. When really they're standing at the front door of our facility in Benghazi, getting ready to murder our ambassador and burn it down.
There is nothing phony about 4 murdered Americans in Benghazi, and if he thinks there is, I'd encourage him to look at the autopsy photos. People have begun to lose trust in the institutions of government, and if they want to use the word phony for that, they need to get out of Washington more and go to real America. Washington is its own ecosystem. They wouldn't like it if I cured malaria tonight. I mean, because I'm a Republican. So, of course, they're going to be critical. Oh, Dana, I want to congratulate the New York Times. It only took 15 months for them to figure out how to spell Benghazi.
I'm not telling you how to do your job, but I'm going to ask you some questions. Can you tell me why Chris Stevens was in Benghazi the night that he was killed? Do you know why an ambassador asking for more security days and weeks before he was murdered and those requests went unheeded? Do you know why no assets were deployed during the siege? And do you know whether the president called any of our allies? Why was Susan Rice on the 5 Sunday talk shows? Do you know the origin of this mythology? That it was spawned as a spontaneous reaction to a video.
Reasonable minds can differ on what the most important unresolved issue is. For me personally, why our administration missed episode of violence after episode of violence in Libya leading up to September 11th, 2012.
They stood their post. The least we can do is stand this meager post that we've been assigned and demand that this administration speak the truth to the people it's supposed to serve. This was never about a video. It was never spontaneous. This is terror. And I want to know why we were lied to. So if anyone wants to know what difference does it make, if anyone wants to ask what difference does it make, it always matters whether or not you can trust your government. And to the families, we're going to find out what happened in Benghazi, and I don't give a damn whose career is impacted. We're going to find out what happened.
As a prosecutor for 16 years, this is not my first death threat. I'm always happy when it doesn't come from my wife, and this one did not. So I'm going to be fine, and it's not going to keep me from doing my job.
Good man.
I need all the evidence, all the documents, unredacted, and I need access to all the witnesses. You can draw whatever conclusion you want, but you can't draw any conclusions if you don't have the evidence. You can say whatever else you want. He's not smart, his suit doesn't match, bad haircut. No one will tell you I'm not fair, and at the end of this, I think you'll say the same thing.
Ms. Smith and Mr. Woods, I want
express on a personal level my gratitude and my sympathy to you for the loss of your sons, and to everyone that loved your sons and all the 4 victims of Benghazi. And the word closure is used all the time. In my experiences, it's only used by people who have never suffered the loss of a child, because there is no closure. I can't offer you closure. What I hope we can offer you is the truth, facts, justice, and let you do with that what you need to do as you walk down that road we call grief. I am asked about Benghazi, and in effect about your sons, more than any other issue. So the jury has
issues that are important to us. We're going to punish our enemies, and we're going to reward our friends.
Attack on Hillary. Let's play hardball. Good evening. I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start tonight with this. We'll get to the bad politics in Ukraine much later in the show, but let me start with the bad politics here in this country. Did you notice, and this is certainly a nasty fact, that the same hawks who won a street fight, some exchange of trash talk with Russian President Putin, who aren't afraid at all to get in the old Cold War raging again, also can't quit that nasty little side war they're fighting with Hillary Clinton. There they go again, blasting Secretary Clinton over Benghazi again this weekend. Benghazi, it's how they say, remember the Alamo. It's their way of yelling, Tora, 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 or Geronimo. What are they getting at? That Hillary Clinton and everyone else on the Democratic side is a traitor who runs and hides in the face of the enemy, who lets Americans die, then lies about it. I watched Susan Rice when she appeared on Meet the Press in September of 2012. I watched her yesterday when she did it again. And unlike the hawks pushing for trouble abroad and division at home, I also read the bipartisan report of the Senate Intelligence Committee saying that what Rice said in 2012 about Benghazi carried the hard, difficult core of truth. That the raid which killed our ambassador resulted from the attack that day in Cairo, which resulted from that crazy anti-Islamic video produced by some crazed right-winger out in California. So why did John McCain and Darrell Issa and the rest keep yelling Benghazi? Why do they like to say how much they respect Hillary Clinton, especially her work as Secretary of State, and then continue to accuse her of cover-up, going AWOL in the face of the enemy, and God knows what else? Does Issa truly believe that Hillary Clinton ordered American troops who could have tried saving Ambassador Chris Stevens over in Libya to stand down? Why would she do that to a friend? Stevens was her friend. Why would she deliberately let him die? What are you saying, Mr. Issa? What are you getting at, Senator McCain? Do you or do you not accept that it was the intelligence community that called the attack of Benghazi the work of extremists? That it was the CIA itself, led by Petraeus, that struck the word al-Qaeda from its description of the attack? Which brings to me the partisan question. Is this all the Republicans have? Is this their silver bullet to keep Hillary Clinton from the White House? Is it this dishonest, over-the-top, festering over Benghazi? Alex Wagner is the host of Now, weekdays at 4 Eastern on MSNBC. And she's joining us right now. David Cornish, Washington Bureau Chief for Mother Jones, and an MSNBC political analyst. David, it is relentless. Yeah. It's continuing through this hour. We're getting it all day because of what happened yesterday, Meet the Press. Yeah. I looked at Susan Rice. I don't know why she apologized at all. She said she was right, but in some ways she said she wasn't completely right. On all the essential points, why there was a Benghazi attack, copycat from Cairo. Why probably was there an attack on Cairo? Because this crazy anti-Islamic video that went viral. Right. Why don't they just say, damn it, we were right the first time, and keep moving on?
Well, I think for the Republicans and for John McCain, this has become almost a theological issue. They just have to
go back.
Religion. It's not. It doesn't make sense. If you sit down and go over the facts as you just did, and we can do it over and over again, they will not change their position. They came out and they really crucified Susan Rice for no good reason. You know, she was talking about intelligence talking points that have been put together by the CIA.
But she ain't running for anything, by the way.
Yeah, she's not running.
You know what? They're going after her. Go ahead.
But when she was up for Secretary of State, McCain and Lindsey Graham came out. They called her not qualified, not competent. She was disconnected from reality. It was an ad hominem attack on a woman who's spent years doing public service, the type of public service that John McCain says he's proud of. His campaign slogan, what was it? Country first? No, it's not country first. It's politics first, and maybe it's even get Hillary first over everything else.
Well, I don't get it. Anyway, National Security Advisor Susan Rice was back on Meet the Press this weekend, and she told David Greger she has no regrets about what she said nearly 18 months ago in the aftermath of that Benghazi attack. Let's watch her.
What I said to you that morning and what I did in every day since was to share the best information that we had at the time. The information I provided, which I explained to you, was what we had at the moment. It could change. I commented that this was based on what we knew on that morning, was provided to me and my colleagues, and indeed to Congress, by the intelligence community. And that's been well validated in many different ways since. And that information turned out in some respects not to be 100% correct. But the notion that somehow I or anybody else in the administration misled the American people is patently false, and I think that that's been amply demonstrated.
What she meant by not 100% correct was that when she first testified, you'll hear, she said there was a demonstration that turned into an attack, but all of it was a result, by all the best estimates by the bipartisan Senate Intelligence Committee, of going back to a copycat behavior by the crowds and the bad people, of course, who did this horrible thing of killing our ambassador and his colleagues. But all of it resulted from this crazy fervor of watching television, seeing what happened in Cairo that same day, the same kind of assault. And that itself was caused by this going viral of this crazy anti-Islamic tape. Anyway, here's what Susan Rice said 5 days after the Benghazi attack when she was on Meet the Press in September 16, 2012. Let's watch.
Putting together the best information that we have available to us today. Our current assessment is that what happened in Benghazi was in fact initially a spontaneous reaction to what had just transpired hours before in Cairo, almost a copycat of the demonstrations against our facility in Cairo, which were prompted, of course, by the video. What we think then transpired in Benghazi is that opportunistic extremist elements came to the consulate as this was unfolding.
Well, those comments sparked right-wing charges of a cover-up. The only problem is that we now know the substance of what Susan Rice said right there was largely accurate. It was a copycat based originally on the movie. Anyway, start with her central assertion that the attack is believed to have been a reaction to unfolding events, initially set off by the anti-Islamic video produced out in California, which was pretty much confirmed last month by a bipartisan Senate report, as I said. That committee, the bipartisan committee, found, quote, intelligence suggests that the attack was not a highly coordinated plot, but was opportunistic. Some intelligence suggests the attacks were likely put together in short order following that day's violent protests in Cairo against an inflammatory video. She's right on the mark there in her early testimony in 2012. An exhaustive New York Times report from back in December of 2013 also found that, quote, contrary to claims by some members of Congress, it was fueled in large part by anger at an American-made video denigrating Islam. Well, the right wing also attacked Susan Rice for using the word extremists instead of terrorists. But that word choice came directly from the intelligence community's talking points. We know that now. And they also attacked the administration for removing the words al-Qaeda from the talking point. Well, that was removed by the CIA, headed by David Petraeus. He's the one that said, don't say al-Qaeda. According to that Senate committee report, the reference to al-Qaeda was removed to protect intelligence sources and methods. Alex, this seems to be not just a tempest in a teapot, but an attempt to destroy the reputations of Susan Rice and to get at the person she was speaking for that day, the Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, who people like John McCain always like to say how chummy they are with her. But here they are accusing her of a cover-up, and worse than that, you know what they're implying, that somehow she let, through a stand down in the military, let her friend get killed. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with you, Chris. I think that this has hurt Susan Rice insofar as it cost her the Secretary of of State position. One could argue she still has a highly influential position in the White House, but she paid a price for this. But that apparently is not enough pain to extract from this administration if you are a Republican. I find the most disconcerting part of this, you just laid out all the actual facts behind this attack in Benghazi. You talked about a very comprehensive reported piece by David Kirkpatrick in the New York Times, which should settle any lingering doubts, a Senate committee finding. What we now are dealing with is a group of conservatives in a Republican Party for whom facts are fungible. And they will take any bit of data and spin it any way they want, whether that's data, economic data from the Congressional Budget Office, whether that is a bipartisan Senate committee finding, whether that is actual declassified intelligence from the intelligence agencies themselves. There is no agreed upon axis anymore. And that makes everything from deciding on economic policy to climate change to national security incredibly difficult.
Well, here's the hard part for me. I always have a mixed view of John McCain. For what he's done for our country, his service to the country is unassailable. But here he is, not surprisingly, John McCain has jumped in and he is not satisfied with what Rice said yesterday on Meet the Press. Let's watch him. Look at the passion behind this guy. Here he is, going after him.
I'm almost speechless because it's patently obvious, first of all, that Susan Rice had no reason to be on the program. She had no involvement in it. Second of all, she read talking points that we are now beginning to believe came from the White House, which were absolutely false. For Susan Rice to say such a thing, I think it's a little embarrassing, to tell you the truth.
Well, I think it's embarrassing for Senator McCain not to do his homework. He should know the facts are in, and Rice was right, and everybody was right here on the main points. Anyway, meanwhile, this morning, Republican strategist, the guy who called Ohio the wrong way, Karl Rove, also took issue with Ambassador Rice. No surprise, he gets paid to do it. Here he is. Let's watch Rove in action.
There are two things wrong with this. One is the arrogance of the moment. I have no regrets about lying to the American people. And second of all, the continuing stubbornness of this cover-up. The attack happens on a Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, the Libyan president is telling America this is a terrorist incident. By Sunday morning, Susan Rice is picked out. I feel sorry for her in a way. She was a patsy. The American people deserve to have an answer. Who concocted this scheme? Who briefed Susan Rice?
Well, we know all the answers. The answer was the CIA told her what to say. General David Petraeus, who's beloved on the right, and maybe he should be, but he's beloved on the right. David Petraeus wrote these talking points, said, don't say Al-Qaeda, don't say terrorists, say extremists. And by the way, this is what happened. It started in California. It worked its way through Cairo. It ended up in Benghazi. All the facts on the table, asserted to by bipartisan sources. Not just the New York Times, as you mentioned, Alex, but the Senate Bipartisan Committee. It's all in, and they keep acting like they do on evolution, like they do on climate change. They play these games of, well, we don't know, or there's
all
a lot of things.
The facts, there's still questions. There's still questions. Listen, the guy who served President WMD should have no cause to question anyone about the accuracy of the information presented, because when it comes to what Susan Rice said, it was far closer to the mark than anything they said about Iraq before the war. And Senator McCain, he really needs to sit down and read the emails that came out last spring that you and I poured over, that everyone else has poured over, before he starts saying that the White House is behind these talking points.
Okay, let's go to the religious part of this. I want to get to the religion. Alex, do some anthropology for me here. Why is it so vital to the people, not just hard right, but McCain and then to the right? So it's center right, far right. Why is it such a partisan? And Darrell Issy, who's a complete opportunist. Why is this so vital to them? Is this all they got on Hillary down the road, is to say Benghazi, Benghazi, Benghazi? Is it all they got on, that they can claim that these people didn't just make a mistake? They're traitors. Yeah. They're evil. They screw their friends. They kill their friends. It's like the ultimate evil they've got. Anyway, your thoughts. Why are they hanging on this thing?
I think Rove's motivation is different than McCain's. I think McCain is intent on launching a broader invective against this administration on foreign policy. He sees them as inept, and he sees himself as kind of the last lion in the Senate that can speak intelligently in his mind towards war, foreign policy, international engagement. And I think he's incredibly frustrated by the fact that he is not pulling the levers on foreign policy and national security.
You think he thinks he should be president rather than Obama?
Absolutely. I think this is absolutely sort of residual, sort of the ghost of McCain's future. And then on Rove's count, if you notice the vocabulary he's using, he talks about arrogance and stubbornness of this administration. That is part of a broader, concerted Republican effort to say that this president is overreaching, to say that he doesn't listen to anybody. I mean, this is very much a campaign that has been waged during the second part of the Obama administration administration and even parts of the first, and will last, by the way, I think for years to come, because as you point out, Chris, this is the only thing they have. This and Obamacare is basically all they have for 2016.
Thanks so much. Thanks for coming on. Alex Wagner's on every day at 4, and David Corn, who's often on here to our advantage. Coming up, make room in the far-right clown car, the latest candidate, Milton Wolf, the Tea Party physician who's running for the U.S. Senate in Kansas. He's posted gruesome pictures of gunshot fatalities and tacked on a few jokes for kicks. The Senate Conservatives Fund, by the way, sticking with him. Why not? He's one of them. Also, what's the one issue that could really work for Democrats in this tough midterm year? The minimum wage. Even most Republicans support increasing it, just not the elected ones in Congress. Senator Sherrod Brown joins us. And speaking of politics, making strange bedfalls, what got New York's new mayor together with Al Roker this morning? Here's a hint. It had to do with something that has buried a lot of U.S. mayors. Finally, let me finish tonight with Chicken Kiev, the right wing's tendency to always push for U.S. intervention. This is Hardball, Place for Politics.
Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Janine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. You know, justice is about accountability and consequences. Justice occurs when truth is put to the lie, when the facts and not the politicians tell the story. Justice should always be swift and certain, but in the Obama administration, it is slow and uncertain. And as we found out this week, the Obama administration puts political lies over American lives. We have been waiting for Benghazi justice ever since September 11, 2012. And this week, a bipartisan Senate committee, Democrats joining Republicans, issued a scathing report blaming Hillary Clinton's State Department for deaths that were preventable and for the inadequate security that was provided to her friend, Ambassador Chris Stevens, and 3 other Americans. The report makes clear that in the months before the attack on Benghazi, the intelligence community provided, quote, ample strategic warning that U.S. facilities and personnel were at risk in Benghazi, that militias and terrorist-affiliated groups had both the capacity and the intent to strike U.S. interests. That from the report. And this from the Pentagon, AFRICOM, CIA, DIA, Stevens Security Detail, Stevens himself, not to mention 20 separate security incidents at that compound in the months before September 11th. But we already knew this, didn't we? We knew there was no protest. And everybody knew there was no protest, except, of course, the New York Times, who would never let the facts get in the way of shielding the Obama administration. The truth? The FBI and the CIA admit they knew from the surveillance cameras, yet 2 weeks later, the president goes to the United Nations to blame the massacre on that despicable anti-Muslim video. Folks, I read this report. The word video is mentioned once. That's it. Once. And that's in connection with a protest in Cairo. But President Obama and Secretary Clinton take out an ad to apologize to the Arab world for this hateful video. And the narrative continues. Susan Rice is given her marching orders to talk about the anti-Muslim video. Think about it. They blame an unconnected video, but they had to agree to this narrative. They knew it wasn't a video or a spontaneous declaration. And yet, the talking points, the speeches, the words whispered in the ears of the families of the dead Americans were all about that despicable video. Why? To mislead us just weeks before a presidential election. Where I come from, the manufacturer of that lie is called a conspiracy. And when the Intelligence Committee said that the deaths were preventable, they were saying that the attack was foreseeable, that the deaths did not have to happen, that they should not have happened. And in doing so, the committee put the responsibility directly in the lap of the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton. Now, you remember her, the woman who was going to get to the bottom of this by appointing an accountability review board that would never interview her. I know you remember her, the Secretary of State, the one logging all those miles, unable to appear before congressional committees because she was traveling, because she had the flu, because she fell, and because she had a concussion. And when she finally does show up, she says she never saw the cables sent to her personally, signed by the ambassador, foreshadowing not only how they would die, but the very groups that would kill them. And then, Madam Secretary, you show up 4 months later after everyone else has given their version of the facts so that all your ducks are in a row. And your efforts that night?
It turned out we had people getting over that wall in Cairo doing damage until we got them out. We had a serious threat against our embassy in Tunis. I had to call the president of Tunisia and beg him to send reinforcements, which he did, to finally save our embassy, which could have been a disaster.
On the phone with Tunisia? What did I miss? Who died in Tunisia? But then again, you like phones, don't you? Remember this one?
It's 3 a.m. and your children are safe and asleep. But there's a phone in the White House and it's ringing. Who do you want answering the phone?
I'm Hillary Clinton, and I approve this message.
But then again,
what difference at this point does it make?
As the Secretary of State, your job was to protect the people in your charge. You are responsible for their safety and their well-being. You knew they were receiving danger pay because it was a dangerous area. You knew how dangerous this part of the world was. Hell, when you went to Benghazi, you had the Defense Department pre-position assets off the Libyan coast in case you needed rescue. What that tells me is that you understood the danger to yourself, but ignored it when it came to others. That's called negligence. You failed to perceive a substantial and unjustifiable risk, that the danger of death existed to the people in your charge. Your conduct was a gross deviation from the standard of care that any reasonable Secretary of State would observe. You disregarded the grave risk to the lives of Americans. You knew it. That's why you didn't go on the Sunday shows. You knew it, which is why you waited until everyone else had spoken so you could get your ducks in a row. And you knew it because of the cables from your friend and the deteriorating security situation in Benghazi. You knew it, which is why you appointed your friends to an accountability review board, which friends never even called you to testify. You knew it, which is why no one was ever fired in your department. You knew it because the only one who suffered consequences was the whistleblower who went against your dictates. So which is it? If you didn't know, then you're incompetent. And if you did know, you're guilty of criminal negligence. People, though, are so afraid of you that your name is not even mentioned in the review by the Senate Intelligence Committee. And yet, you say that you take responsibility. But how do you take responsibility when there are no consequences, or anyone in your department, like Susan Rice? Everyone on the conspiracy was promoted. But what happened in Benghazi was foreseeable. You had a duty and a responsibility, and they relied on you. They asked you for safety and security. And you breached not only that duty, but you breached the public trust that we have in our government. Now, I am a prosecutor. I have spent my career in the assignment of blame. And I know you won't be prosecuted for any of this, and your boss won't be impeached. But remember this. Justice is about accountability and consequences. The facts have now been told. The consequences have yet to be determined. And in the meantime, we continue to wait for justice.
What difference at this point does it make? What difference at this point does it make? What difference does it make? What difference does it make?
I think way back in the day, when David L VanDerBeek used to come on the show and we would talk some serious politics, we had this bumper, and I think it sounds familiar to him, and hopefully he feels at home once again here on the Pete Santilli Show, because he has been somebody that we've admired over the past year as we've grown. And certainly David L VanDerBeek has taught us a lot about what it takes as an individual to stand up on behalf of his community, his state, his country, and to rise up and to talk about the same exact issues that we speak of, and to run for office and try to affect change. David L VanDerBeek is an independent American Party candidate for governor for the state of Nevada in the 2014 elections. So David recently ran for Nevada State Senate, and he is an American Mormon family man and was raised in Idaho. And his ancestors actually settled in Nevada in Lincoln County before Nevada was even a state. And his children are seventh-generation Nevadans. And he calls himself a Rocky Mountain boy. And he's looking for other patriots. And he knows that they are out there. He stepped forward at this time in our history to help us save the U.S. Constitution. And, ladies and gentlemen, this man is somebody who I have always called a fellow patriot. His name is David L VanDerBeek, and he joins me once again. It's been a while. He's been very, very busy, of course, and we'll give you all the links to find out more about David. You're about to hear from him. I'm so proud to have you back on to introduce you to our newest listeners. David, welcome back to the Pete Santilli Show.
Thanks. It's great to be with you. It's great to be back.
It's great to have you. I, recently, well, of course, we followed your progress as you've come along. I mean, your message is essentially the same exact thing. You've got some great graphics on your YouTube videos, but, your character has never wavered. Your message has never wavered. It's the same exact thing. Except now you're on a larger platform talking to people in the state of Nevada, and obviously throughout the United States now people are taking notice. And you know what's really interesting is when you and I were first talking way back when we were a small podcast and you were on Blog Talk Radio, we were saying the same thing back then, but it wasn't as trendy as it is now, where everything that we talked about then is now coming to full-blown fruition. We're in tyranny at this point.
Yes.
Right?
Well, I think we are, and what it is it's more obvious to the people because they're so aggressive in their own way. The corruption is very aggressive, but I think it's been aggressive for a long time. I think you're right that there is a trendiness to patriotism, that I guess in the beginning of change, the patriot is a scarce man, the Mark Twain quote, and brave and hated and scorned. When his cause succeed, the timid join him, for then it costs nothing, So I think we develop as human beings. We grow over time. The website's NevadaGovernor2014.com. You're right. I haven't changed the message. It's just that it went into overdrive. It's getting a lot of ground support.
It used to. The differences that I'm referring to, ladies and gentlemen, is David, as a YouTuber, almost every single day was putting out YouTube videos, and you work, and I will find out a little bit more about your background here. I want our audience to know this, but you pretty much work around the clock, dedicated to your family, dedicated to your country, and your clients. But you were still taking the time out to do YouTube videos and to educate people on what we needed to look out for. And you were doing that in the comforts of your home. Now I see you on television with flags in the background. Not that you didn't want to have flags behind you before, but you do now. Let me do something. I want to segue to this. This is an excerpt that was taken out, and it references Benghazi, because I want to get right into the important topics that I want our listenership to hear your view. And the best way to do that is for me to click play. Here's an excerpt from one of David's recent presentations on television in Nevada. Here it is. I have this video, and I'm going to play it for you. Just a brief excerpt.
We're told to wait, among them Delta Force operators. Smith.
Let me back up a little bit, because that's an important segment right there. And I apologize because YouTube was getting a little bit crazy. There we go.
How many people we saw saved in these selfless... It was the Navy SEALs that disobeyed the CIA orders. Okay? They saved them. Those people at the consulate would have all died if the CIA had gotten their way. If Hillary Clinton had gotten her way. If President Obama had gotten his way, they'd all be dead. 30 people dead. But these Navy SEALs went on and fought at the consulate. They rescued those people. They recovered the body of Sean Smith. And then the fighting went on at the CIA annex for more than 4 hours. Enough time for any planes based at Sigonella Air Base, just 480 miles away, to arrive. Fox News has learned that 2 separate Tier 1 Special Operations Forces were told to wait, among them Delta Force operators. A Special Operations Team, or CIF, which stands for Commanders in Extremis Force, operating in Central Europe, had been moved to Sigonella, Italy, but they were never told to deploy.
Now, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm also going to add something in Clinton's own words, and then we're going to go to David for his commentary. Because in Clinton's own words, at her testimony, right before the Senate hearing, listen to this.
First, let's start on the night of September 11th itself, in those difficult early days. I directed our response from the State Department, stayed in close contact with officials from across our government and the Libyan government. So I saw firsthand what Ambassador Pickering and former Chairman Mullen called timely and exceptional coordination.
Okay, so David L VanDerBeek, she claims full credit. She's at the top of the food chain. She's the one that called the shots that resulted in what, David L VanDerBeek? What did her decision-making result in?
Well, her decision was to... The difference was that the ambassador died and Sean Smith died, and those Navy SEALs didn't get support. That's the whole point, is that we had people asking for help over a period of hours and hours, 7 hours of combat, and they were not given help. That's the effect of what Hillary Clinton did, and Obama was part of that. And the CIA cooperated with that. So that's Petraeus. Now, and so Petraeus was brought down, and rightly so, but not for the actual reasons. The reasons had to do with it. They, we don't necessarily need to get into that in this second, but the whole power structure, the Secretary of Defense, the head of the CIA, the Secretary of State, and the President were all involved in allowing these people to die.
That's the bottom line. People have died as a result of not only, I could see if they made mistakes, okay? Making mistakes is one thing. But intentionally telling troops to stand down and this is really almost, it's conspiratorial to cause people to die as a result.
Yeah. Okay? It's a conspiracy to commit murder because the people that are over there. See, there's so many questions. There's so many questions with Benghazi. Was there even actually a consulate in Benghazi? That's a question. Was that actually a consulate? Because I'm told that the consulate is actually in Tripoli, which means that there's the CIA annex and there was actually 2 locations for the CIA, or was there just one? Mm-hmm. And why did these rebels know? How did Al Qaeda find out that there was the CIA there? Now, going back to Hillary Clinton, you remember her testimony was the senator's there, and the senator's just saying, "Okay, Hillary, you rescue these people. Why couldn't you just give them a call to find out that it was a terrorist attack?" Why did you guys decide to say for days on end that it was a spontaneous protest based on a YouTube video? Why did you decide to say that? And why didn't you just talk to one of the survivors? Now, those are the people she wanted dead. So no wonder she didn't want to talk to them. She wanted to see them dead. Now the motive isn't something that I haven't talked about this yet. And this is the next thing we need to talk about, the motivation, or it's one thing we need to talk about. Why would they want the ambassador dead? Who wanted him dead? And who was willing to let this, because you have this is very complex. You've got a president who wants to win an election. He wants to say the war on terror is over. At the same time, you've got a president who works with the military-industrial complex to arm al-Qaeda to carry on the war on terror so that we have to continue to invade the Middle East. Those complexities are entirely lost on the general public so far. They don't understand, they don't grasp that we created, funded, and arm al-Qaeda. They don't grasp that.
David, so, I'm going to tell you something, and if you don't mind me interrupting, this is really important. I want to share this with you, all right? And I'm going to remind everybody right now, I'm about to drop a bombshell, all right, on something that we discovered early on, because our investigative journalists, right from an onset of any attack, immediately what we do is we gather all the early information. Why? Because that's typically the most truthful. And the powers that be like to muddle it all up and bury all the important stuff. So let me remind everybody what happened shortly after Benghazi, all right? And this is a fact, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a report that came out on September 14th, okay? That a British newspaper, The Times, revealed that a largest shipment of weapons has arrived in Turkey. And guess where it was shipped from? It was shipped out of Libya to Turkey to be delivered to the Syrian rebels. A Libyan ship carrying the largest consignment of weapons for Syria has docked in Turkey, said The Times in an article published on Friday. Who negotiated that deal? Ambassador Stevens. He negotiated that deal.
What's do you have an article on
I have the article, and I dropped it in your Skype link, okay? The article's writer, Shira Frenkel, said most of the Libyan ship's cargo is making its way to the armed terrorist groups inside Syria. And ladies and gentlemen, not just arms. I'm talking about 400-ton cargo shipment of SAM-7 surface-to-air missiles were shipped out of Libya on September 14th. And let me tell you something else, David, all right? And I'm going to turn it over to you because I'm on fire about this, and I don't forget. On September 21st, Hillary Clinton herself lifted the terrorist designation of the MEK. It's a terrorist organization that the State Department said they now deserved to be doing business because they were in opposition to Iran. The MEK is the Iranian al-Qaeda. And because they opposed Iran, the State Department, led by Hillary Clinton, on September 21st, lifted that terrorist designation. Ladies and gentlemen, after Stevens was murdered by Hillary Clinton, she shipped 400 tons of arms and gave status to the MEK. Al-Qaeda gave them full free reign and lifted their terrorist designation that her husband actually locked down on them in the early 90s. So she is single-handedly involved in supporting Al-Qaeda with arms shipments and by removing their terrorist designation. Does she not deserve to be held accountable to that, sir?
Well, absolutely. There's no other option. See, the reality is that she's no longer the secretary, so she can be criminally prosecuted. She can also be civilly prosecuted by all the families. So she should be tried, and she should be executed. That should be the death penalty for the treason.
Now, you know what? If you don't mind, can I interrupt you there? Because this is an important thing, and I don't want to. I don't even want to disgrace this segment by referring to what I said on my show, because I say what I say, and I think you already know that. We've already had discussions about that. I say what I say. But I'm going to tell you this. I was very specific in my commentary that's all over the press today, okay, in that regard, that I don't want her to die. I've actually done something and said something that's less humane. I want her to suffer, whereas people like you who are rational and logical and lawful and constitutional want to bring the death penalty to her by hanging for treason. I want the opposite. I want to shoot her in the vagina and to let her suffer right before my eyes on behalf of all of the people who have died at her hands.
Well, that's understandable.
You know, and those were my comments. But we'll move on.
I didn't have the article. You know, now that I've got the article, I'm going to have to read it in detail.
Yep.
Now, you're saying that Ambassador Stevens is there? So he was helping with the arms deal.
Ambassador Stevens, and this came from a person, and I have an audio recording of it. Okay. Who I know, who works for the State Department and the CIA, 3 days after being on the ground in Benghazi, all right? He knows that Stevens was negotiating an arms shipment, okay? An arms shipment that was to go from Libya to Turkey to the Syrian al-Qaeda rebels. He had all of the everything set up. And by the way, he's also a Muslim.
Do you know why it was going from Libya? Why was it originating from Libya?
It was originating from Libya. Essentially, the arms shipment, the 400 tons of arms, were to go to al-Qaeda, ultimately. And Stevens was negotiating that deal and had CIA representatives from their annex right down the street involved in negotiating that deal.
Now, those are, it says the boxes of SAMs. Is that what they are? SAMs 7S?
Yeah, and it was publicized. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm catching you off guard here, but I think this is important to identify that these are facts that were kind of muddled up.
These weapons, are these American weapons that were in? Are these Russian weapons?
No, these are Libyan weapons as a result of our acquisition through the war in Libya. When we took over Libya, they basically just rounded up a bunch of arms, negotiated the deal with the country of Libya, settled the cash, and then shipped the arms to al-Qaeda in Syria.
Got it. Okay.
Okay.
And so Ambassador Stevens was – now, the question that I have then is if Stevens is doing that, why let him die? Why would Clinton, if he's doing their dirty work, why does he end up dying?
This is the biggest question, and this comes directly from my contact at the Central Intelligence Agency, who called me, by the way, and said, after 3 days being on the ground in Benghazi, he was so concerned because he didn't know, they have no idea what side to trust, because he believed that the New World Order and the Old World Order was battling against each other. The arms shipment was trying to be stopped versus the other side, whichever side it was, he had no idea. Everyone was absolutely petrified at what just happened, because the deal went bad. Both sides were battling it out, whether to stop the arms shipment or let the arms shipment go. Now, the obvious implication is that what happened was Stevens died and the arms shipment went, and there was nobody in place that was a witness to that fact as to how it was negotiated. Okay? So, but why they would call that shot, why he would be killed, we don't know. That's only conspiracy theory. But what we do know is that he was intentionally left to die. He was intentionally, they wanted him, somebody wanted him dead, and then shortly thereafter, the arms shipment went, and MEK had their terrorist designation removed.
Well, and it's also really important to recognize that the Obama campaign wanted to whitewash it during the election because the State Department, Hillary Clinton, had repeatedly denied Stevens' request for additional security in Libya. So those people had been asking for more security, and one thing that happened that I talked about was that they hired a local militia of Libyans to help with the security, and they didn't show up until 6 hours after the attack had started.
Yeah.
And they were sympathetic with al-Qaeda. So those were the people, and that organization was hired by Hillary Clinton and the State Department. So, and she's the only person that could clear a site, could waive the safety precautions, the safety policies for a location to be occupied by, foreign service employees of the government.
Yeah.
She had to waive those safety policies that normally would have been in place.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
David, here's the main thing, is that the information that was relayed to me is that there were factions within our government that were battling this out, okay? And Benghazi was ground zero for that battle. Whoever was in charge, what was going on, my contact had no idea what was going on. He was so scared and so fearful of what was happening with our country that heads were rolling, there were admirals that were fired, and essentially everything was realigned, and they said, what the hell is going on? To the point to where he said, I'm so fearful of my country, I'm not supposed to be talking to you, I need to tell you what's going on, I have no clue what's going on, and that's frightening. He said, I should be knowing what's going on, and nobody has any idea what just happened. And he is a wet work technician for Hillary Clinton. You know what that is, right?
I don't know what a wet work technician.
He's an assassin. He's a hired assassin working and reporting to the State Department for Hillary Clinton. I know this. He told me. I have a recording of such. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is the truth. This is how this chick operates in the world. Now, when we come back, David, we're going to take a break. If you don't mind, I want you and I to review the history behind this woman, dating all the way back to funding her political career out of Mena, Arkansas, with drugs. Not conspiracy theories. I want to talk about conspiracy facts. And I want to know, David, we want to ask the listener why law enforcement has done nothing to bring these drug runners to task. Drug runners and terrorists running our government.
Broadcast has been brought to you by the Gorilla Media Network.
Mamma Mia's Authentic Italian Cookie Company. Hand-rolled traditional-style Italian cookies from recipes passed down through the generations from Sicily to Louisiana. A taste of the old world can now be savored and made a tradition in every home worldwide. Imagine the delight of your family and guests when they bite into the authentic taste of Italy at your next family holiday or special occasion. Mamma Mia's Authentic Cookie Company, preserving the art of Italian baking and providing you with quality, delightful cookies that you will enjoy for years to come. 14 different Italian cookies sold by the pound and FedEx to your door. Could anything be more convenient? Visit MammaMias.com and browse in Mama's Cookie Gallery for ideas for your next party and custom cookie order. Beautiful cookies baked in America, inspired by Italy and Mama's love. Mamma Mia's Authentic Italian Cookies. Traditional, convenient, and delicioso. Biscotto molto buono.
Are you over your head in debt and not sure what to do? Did you know there's a way to legally wipe out debt? Stop harassing phone calls? Even stop foreclosure or repossession? Well, the answer is yes. Pick up the phone right now and call the bankruptcy hotline at the law offices of Craig Zimmerman. With 17 years experience as a practicing attorney, Craig knows how to get the creditors off your back and get you peace of mind. Most people don't realize that bankruptcy is a great alternative by immediately stopping collection calls, allowing you to keep your home, eliminate all of your debt, and give you a fresh start. Call now for a free, no-obligation consultation at 800-281-2286 and learn how bankruptcy could help you. So stop wondering what to do with your debt and call us at 800-281-2286. 800-281-2286. Not all will qualify. The law offices of Craig Zimmerman is federally designated as a debt relief agency. Office is located in Dallas and Santa Ana, California.
If you're not paying attention, I need you to pay attention right now, okay? We'll cover the chaos show. We'll be able to let our hair down and relax. I want everyone to pay very close attention, all right? Because this is important because we need to relay this information very, very, very accurately to the people that are now, we have a lot of new listeners as a result of the media firestorm that has taken place about my remarks towards Hillary Clinton, all right? And I believe that as radical as it may sound, okay, to bring her to accountability, I want everybody to know, and this isn't as a backup, this is what I honestly believe in. I believe in a lawful constitutional republic where people, even like Hillary Clinton, are held accountable for her actions. And the information that we're disclosing right now needs to be conveyed to even the libtards that are given a soundbite from CNN or a soundbite from the Daily Kos saying that Pete Santilli said he wanted to commit a crime against all women. No. That's not it. You need to consider the context by which we are discussing here today. I'm now joined once again by David L VanDerBeek. He's candidate for governor of Nevada for 2014 for very good reason that you're going to be hearing as we proceed in this discussion. Now, David.
Yes, sir.
Hillary Clinton was directly involved, in holding off the troops, the Navy SEAL teams who basically violated orders, and thank goodness they did, and you highlighted that. Otherwise, more people would have died. Not only that, but the investigation that ensued thereafter as a result of the crafting of the talking points pushed the FBI out. And in October 5th, FBI visits the site of the attack in Libya, and listen to what CNN reported. 3 weeks after 4 Americans were killed in an attack on the U.S. consulate in eastern Libya, an FBI team arrived at this site as the investigation continued, and other places too, a Pentagon spokesman said Thursday. I want to know why that investigation was thwarted. Why were they trying to obstruct justice by holding off the FBI for 3 weeks after that incident? And she says that we wanted to immediately respond and timely and blah, 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 blah. And I called all the shots. If you called all the shots, you deserve to be tried, convicted, and shot in the punani. Okay? I believe she needs to be held to account. She's obstructed just about everything. Why? Did the arms shipment go? I don't know. We'll never know. Not even people at the top. Well, I say top levels. There's an even higher level of CIA, I guess, that's super secret, that knows the inside dealings. But, David, there's no doubt about it that Hillary Clinton has had a long history of achieving power and success through murder, assassination, drug running, pedophilia, trafficking, okay, and now arms shipments and obstruction of justice. Is this not a fact, or am I overblowing this?
Well, I'm not an expert in all the crimes of the Clintons. This is the Benghazi is what I can see, and it's here and now. There are lots of concerns about the Clintons because of how many people have died around them. People can all look up that. How many people who have worked with the Clintons are now dead? That actually were like their personal security or officers that worked for them. So they have left a trail of bodies behind them. And there are questions about their dealings in Arkansas. There are questions about shipments of drugs in planes in Arkansas. So I'm willing to look at everything with her. She is, as far as I'm concerned, a cackling witch.
Yes.
And she has no place in government. She can't be trusted. She is a cold-blooded killer. That I can say is a fact.
Can I share something with you?
She's a cold-blooded killer.
Let me share something with you. And this is outside. And to my point, and I think you're even saying that there's lots of questions that need to be answered. We have a judicial system that allows us to bring her into court and to disclose the answers to all these things. But Larry Nichols was on this show, and he disclosed that he put together the Clinton Chronicles. He disclosed that he was assisting the Clintons in drug trafficking through Mena, Arkansas. Barry Seal was assassinated as a result of his knowledge of all the drug running out of South America. So these facts that exist out there, unfortunately, have not made it through the court system. So would you agree with me that all of these questions about how she attained power through a very corrupt system, I think she needs to be brought to justice, to be brought to trial and have these questions answered. And there's a long-running history from dating all the way back to men of Arkansas and the Clinton governorship, to now we know for a fact that heroin is being trafficked out of Afghanistan. And that's on her watch, and that's on Barack Obama's watch. We know now that arms are being shipped. This is factual. Arms are being shipped from Libya to Al-Qaeda in Syria. This is a fact. Why would you not want to bring her to jail, bring her to justice? Right?
Well, yes, exactly. I mean, there is Hillary Clinton. There's Leon Panetta. Petraeus needs to testify. Obama needs to be impeached. There's only one course of action for the president this point, and that is impeachment. According to McInerney, that retired lieutenant general in the Air Force, if I'm saying his name correctly, he said that only the president could have given such a stand-down order to the State Department to deliver. So there's only, if you're a warrior and you're serving this country with your life, you give everything, you don't abandon a warrior on the field. That's the worst possible thing you can do. That's what cursed the house of Israel in the Bible. That's what brought down King David, is he let one of their elite soldiers die in the field so he could take his wife. So whatever the motive is, is irrelevant to some degree. It's already happened. Right. They abandoned these men to die who had dedicated their whole careers. And these are men that had sat together for a few minutes, received orders, and consciously decided to sacrifice their careers, knowing that they were going to disobey direct orders to help those people. And there is no possible justification for her behavior, for Obama's behavior, and these are narcissistic, psychopathic murderers that need to be brought to justice.
Right, and you said impeachment.
Yes.
I have said trial, and I want to make it really super clear, and I'll ask you, David, why the people are so resistant to this. Why would anyone not agree with an impeachment hearing? Why would anyone not agree with what I'm calling for, and that is a trial, and I would assume, if I were the attorneys, to bring a conviction. Now, guess what else? This is what I want. Why do I want those two things, David? And I think you would want the same thing, is I want full disclosure of the facts. I want a process by which we can disclose the facts. So any stupid idiot that says Pete Santilli's calling for the assassination of anybody is really too dumb to figure out what I'm calling for, and that is full disclosure. If we kill her, we will never know the truth. I don't want her to be dead. I want her alive and in front of a judge and a jury with all the facts. Right?
Well, we can turn her over to, the girls in prison, and she can go do the Harlem Shake with them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Keep her around to suffer for her crimes, right?
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I imagine, for example, think of the mother, Pat Smith, the mother of Sean Smith, the information officer who died at the consulate there. She was talking about on Mother's Day, I don't know if you saw her on the news on Mother's Day, saying to Hillary Clinton, I hope you have a great Mother's Day. Obviously, Hillary Clinton's behavior denied Pat Smith her son on Mother's Day. So, these are just facts. Those are absolute, undeniable facts at this point. If the government, the federal entity, the United States of America, does not set its house in order, it is entirely illegitimate. And we don't have to listen to one thing they say anymore. If they will not set their house in order after letting our soldiers die, after letting our ambassador die, whether or not you think he was a gun runner, that's irrelevant. These games must come to an end. Obama must be out of office. He must be removed. If he is not removed, then we're talking biblical, apocalyptic type results out of this. This is not something that God will tolerate. It's not something that the people will tolerate. I won't tolerate it. I will take my level of rebellion to the next level if there is no justice for Benghazi. The IRS thing, that's a big deal. The wiretapping is a big deal. This Benghazi is the biggest deal. It dwarfs Watergate. Nixon was impeached for Watergate. Watergate was just one party spying on another party and then lying about it.
People didn't die.
Nobody died. Nobody was abandoned on the battlefield. I want people to get it through their heads. What must it have been like to be a Navy SEAL, fully dedicated your whole life to this country, to ask for hours and hours for help, and no help would come? That is such a condemnation of this whole nation, of the Secretary, the State Department, the Pentagon, the CIA, the White House, the Navy, the Air Force. It is a condemnation of the entire system. And if heads don't roll, if people aren't fired, if people don't go to jail for Benghazi, then I will take my level of rebellion to the next level. So I will have zero tolerance for the federal government if they let those men die for nothing.
And I'm gonna speak to, and I don't want you to join me in this attack, but I will stand alone and loudly, okay, in the following regard. If you are a liberal, okay, and you think that you're defending something that's good for our country, I want to also say that I want to hold the people accountable. Because if you are literally, and if you're offended by this, then you're on the wrong side. If you're too stupid to recognize what is happening to your country, you are therefore an enemy of our state. You are contributing to the crimes. Now, David, we also have the liberal media that is starting to recognize what we have. Let me play an excerpt from Piers Morgan. Even somebody as libtardish as Piers Morgan, who has come out and said, oh, we need you Second Amendment wingnuts. You know what he's now saying? He's now saying that we may have tyranny. Listen to this. This is an interview. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, if you just joined us, I'm with the candidate for governor of the state of Nevada for 2014, David L VanDerBeek.
I'm not the candidate. I'm the next governor.
There we go. The next governor of the state of Nevada. The 2014, I support that wholeheartedly. Listen to what Piers Morgan says. Oh, my God. You had to do that. Guess what? I reset it so that I could play it. But listen, the British CNN host Piers Morgan finally admits that gun advocates have a point when they say that the Second Amendment is to protect citizens from tyrannical government. And as soon as I get through this stupid ad that I tried to play through, we will get to it here. Hold on one second. When you play
this Piers Morgan guy.
Listen to this. Here it is.
It's actually criminal. See, I've had some of the gun pro-gun lobbyists on here saying to me, well, the reason we need to be armed is because of tyranny from our own government. And I've always laughed at them. And I've always said, don't be so ridiculous. Your own government won't turn itself on you. But actually, when you look at this, it's nothing to do with guns. But actually, this is vaguely tyrannical behaviour by the American government. I think what the IRS did is bordering on tyrannical behaviour. I think what the Department of Justice has done, actually, to the AP is bordering on tyrannical behaviour.
There's no doubt about that. Once you use the word bordering, that's true. And I also think that it shows...
Once you use the term bordering, then it's true that we have tyranny. If you say that we're bordering on tyranny, we have tyranny.
Yeah. Well, I'll make this comment on the IRS. What I'm going to do as the governor here is I'm going to let the people vote on whether or not I will file taxes ever again to the IRS. So we have to have a real protest against the IRS. We're shifting away, but this is related because Obama used, and presidents always have used, the IRS as a tool of political oppression. It serves no function. We receive zero services for taxes collected by the IRS. Everything is consumed by the bureaucracy. Everything else is paid. It is the IRS is simply a collection agency for the Federal Reserve which is our national branch of the global banking cartel. It is not part of our government. We purchase, our U.S. Treasury is our government and purchases currency that we're forced to use by our government, Federal Reserve notes. So that's all the IRS is. It's just a collection agency for the global bankers, and we all need to stop paying them. And that's why I'm saying if the people want to have a real protest, I'll put up a video, and people will be able to vote through the likes and the dislikes whether or not they want me to not pay taxes and have a real protest. That's worth going to jail for. I believe that's more intelligent as a protest against the real power structure, the money behind the throne, than carrying loaded weapons into D.C. That's my opinion.
You know, and not to get us off on a tangent, I need to put you in contact with Joe Bannister. He's a former IRS special agent in the criminal division who asked the IRS, he's an internal whistleblower, who said, can you please show me the law that says that people must pay taxes? They could not prove such things, and they dismissed him. He actually fought, and by the way, this is a hard battle. It cost him over $200,000 to fight it, but he fought and won. He doesn't recommend that anyone else do that. But he has set a precedent. Within the IRS, they couldn't even answer his questions as to whether or not it is a legal constitutional requirement that we pay income taxes. They couldn't answer that question. They fired him, and they did so wrongfully. And Joe Bannister is that one example that we need to all go by to learn from, because there are some questions in that regard. You may want to get in contact with him. We will certainly put you in contact with him, David. He's the ambassador of that message. Absolutely. But yes, I would say a tax revolt at this point in time. I will come right out and say that we must have a tax revolt. I do not want my taxes going anywhere towards a shipment of arms from Libya, okay? This is the government doing this, from Libya to al-Qaeda in Syria. I don't want that to happen. We need to make a statement and a stand at this point in time. They're using our money wrongfully, and guess what else they're doing? They're acquiring it forcefully, aren't they?
Yep.
That's not a voluntary system, is it?
Exactly. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, there's just so many things wrong with it.
David, let me make my point very clear, and I'm sorry to interrupt. Let me make this point really clear to everybody. The IRS states that the tax system is a voluntary system. Then why do they have to force us to pay it at gunpoint? Why are they running around with guns if it's so voluntary?
Exactly.
Yes, sir. So here we are. We have this one person that we're picking on, right? We have a population of people who actually defend everything that we've just presented to them. If you're a new listener to this show and you're hearing our words right now and you don't want the answers to the questions that we're asking right now, then you are a buffoon. You are literally contributing. It's not just the government. It's not just the people that are running the government. It's the people who are not only voting for the people that are in government, but the people who are refusing to take action when they start committing crimes. I have a big problem with that, David. Why is it that people are so lethargic when you start pummeling them with facts and truth and questions?
That's a mystery to me. It's a mystery to me.
What do you recommend that we all do, including your, they call them constituents or potential voters? I mean, I believe that you are a national leader, even through what you're attempting to do in the state of Nevada. I've always said that. But what do we all need to do, David, to support people like you? Is there a national party that you are representing in the state of Nevada? I mean, are there candidates, other candidates like you?
Well, that's one thing is everybody needs to vote for third party. We've talked about that before, is that you should never vote for a Republican or a Democrat again, because these bastards lie, steal, and cheat. That's how they win. My own cousin, he's a Wayne Klomp Esquire. He's up in Reno, Nevada. He said, yeah, by the way, when I went to and got my sample ballot, you weren't on it. And then when I went to the electronic voting machine, your name wasn't in there. So even though I was blacklisted, 49,000 people were able to find me through the matrix. Now, I didn't get just 49,000 votes. I was permitted to have 49,000 votes. This time it's going to be different. But the one thing is to vote for anybody but a Republican or a Democrat. People have to get out of that paradigm. The other thing is to rebel against the system any way you can. Stop cooperating with these big banks. You know, we have to rebel against the IRS. We have to rebel against the federal government. Stop cooperating with them any way you can. Any way you can gum up this system and break it down faster and slow it down faster. I'm in favor of that. Hacking the voting machines, I'm 100% in favor of that. You have to take back your elections like the veterans in the Battle of Athens in Tennessee after World War II. You have to take back the ballot boxes. You have to take back the voting machines. That means you're going to have to hack them, and you're going to have to find out what the true votes are, because these Republicans and Democrats just use them to cheat, and they have zero incentive to fix the problem. So you got to take back your government, and you have to stand up in every way you can. I don't care if that's not filing your taxes or hacking a voting machine. You know, I like what the people in Arizona did when they put those speeding ticket machines out there in the desert. They just vandalized them and tore down those machines. So, and they got these new signs coming up in Vegas. People think there's some kind of conspiracy there. I just think they're high-density highway traffic signs. But if they think that there's some kind of sign that's going to block signals and body scan people, my advice was, if that's the case, tear down the machines. You have my support in rebelling.
Hey, David, I wasn't going to take calls, but I noticed the area code. This is important because it's a potential voter. In the 702 area code, I have a caller on the line. Is it okay if I take them?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
Especially because they're in the 702. 702 area code, what's your first name? You're live on the Pete Santilli Show. You're calling from Nevada with the next governor of the state of Nevada, David L VanDerBeek.
Pete, it's Will Roberts.
What's up, Will Roberts? What's going on, man?
Well, my 702 is because, I worked for Cirque du Soleil for a few years, and so I'm now in L.A., but I never got rid of that. But I know the Vegas machine pretty well. We got all the hookers and the politicians. They pretty much are in the front row of their shows.
That's an interesting fact. Yeah.
Which one's lap, though?
What's that?
I'm not sure which one's sitting on which one's lap, though, to be honest with you.
That's a funny, interesting statistic, and you would certainly know. Will, let me ask you something. You're not in the state of Nevada any longer, but you go back and forth, correct?
I do go back and forth. I don't, however, I do have a lot of friends there, so I guess you could say I'm influential in the sense that I get around. I don't mean that in any way Vegas-wise, but I get around, and so I do have a little bit of influence with people in Vegas because I talk to them and visit them all the time.
And, Will, we're going to, if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to David because I only have about 6 minutes left with him.
Yeah, please.
You'll be getting, if I don't have a chance to speak with you directly, we're definitely going to be mentioning your show that's coming up, but I'm going to actually bring that up a little bit later on.
Your thing.
All right.
Leave me alone.
Excellent. I'm going to put you on the listener line. And everyone else calling in, ladies and gentlemen, you're welcome to, but I don't have time to take any more callers at 218-862-9829 during this segment. But, David, you know what? This is what I want you to do. I want you to take these remaining 5 minutes, and I want to give you the floor, as they say. And I want you to talk to our listenership, and I basically want to bring us back to where we need to be. Everyone needs to know about you, the message you're communicating. And I believe it's a powerful one, and I think people need to elect somebody like you in each state across the nation. But how can we stay in contact with you, and what do you want to say to our listeners that's most important on your mind?
Well, as far as following the campaign, you just go to NevadaGovernor2014.com. It's the website that dwarfs all other governor websites, campaign websites already. So NevadaGovernor2014.com. You can email me, David at NevadaGovernor2014.com. Twitter is U.S. Family Man. Facebook is my name, David L VanDerBeek, and then the YouTube is David Laurie. So you can get all the information there. We do have a TV show. The thing that I was actually just going to leave with you is something that I haven't talked on any shows yet. It's National Scout Jamboree 2013 False Flag Insider Warning. I got actually contacted by somebody who has military connections, and then there was private intelligence, and they said that there's going to be a July drill for FEMA, that's going to coincide with the Big Scout Jamboree, and that's going to be held on the property of the Bechtel family. They've changed it this year for the first time after 30 years from AP Hill Base. It's at Fort AP Hill, Virginia. There's going to be 50,000 scouts there. They were told that they're going to be provided with victims. So that article is at the website. We do. Yeah, it's a big deal. So we want to make sure that they have to stand down. The Bechtel family is one of the worst families, and they're absolutely globalist. So it's on their property. There were notes that were taken from the meeting, from the FEMA meeting, and I break down those notes. It's a chemical drill, a chemical warfare drill, conventional and unconventional terrorism, and it's supposed to be mass casualty drill. There will be quarantine, forced vaccination, travel restrictions. That's the concern of those kinds of things going on. It's a massive area that is going to be covered. It would be impossible to secure, and so you can look at that, and I'd like people to review that. We want to make sure that the scouts are safe and that the FEMA, DHS, FBI, terror units have to stand down and leave the families alone there.
Now, okay, let me review this so I understand this correctly. It's the first time I'm hearing this. There is an event, a scout event that's being held at this place in Virginia, and a FEMA drill, which is to coincide with it, is a mass casualty drill that they're planning. And we're outwardly talking about this so-called drill.
Well, they didn't. It's not the announced drills that you have to worry about. It's the secret one. So this one is it's one of those drills that is unannounced. And that's what I've said repeatedly. So I was contacted, and I decided to go with the information. I reviewed everything myself, and so there you go. I mean, that's this drill. I mean, it's a legitimate intelligence source. So
okay, so your intelligence source is telling you that they're talking about the mass casualty drill that's not being made public, and the scouts have no idea that this is going to be going on.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
Wow. That needs to get out to all of those scout family members, and they need to understand. If you're brand new to this show, one of the biggest questions we always have is why are there so many FEMA drills that coincide with major events like the Boston Marathon bombing? Why do they do that? Well, they actually have it all set up so that everyone they let their guard down. Like, oh, this is only a drill. That bombing was just part of the whole exercise. And nobody's really on alert. They do these drills to kind of make the actual horrifying event kind of blend in with what they were prepared for anyway.
Right. I mean, you just got to look over the information. I just gave you the link in the chat, the Skype chat, so that you could share that if you want to pass that along.
Yes, sir. David, thank you so much for coming on. I hope you had the opportunity to convey everything that you wanted to here.
Yes,
but
thank you.
Thank you. This is going to be the last time that you come on. I want to bring you back. We need to make sure that we stay in closer contact. And anytime you want to come on and relay something to our listenership, this is, our Costa is your Costa. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot.
All right. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, David L VanDerBeek, the next governor of the state of Nevada. The campaign coming up in 2014. These are the types of people that we need to put in office. Don't you want David in the White House making decisions on our behalf? Don't you want to replace Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton with somebody sane, rational, direct, and selfless like David L VanDerBeek? We'll be back with the news when we come back.